Always nice to be at the Senior Center. I see some familiar faces. I have some friends here and also some people that are new to me. I remember you folks from last time, so really nice to have you here again. As Dawn said, I'm Elizabeth Swider. I own a company called Geriatric Care Management. I'm excited about this topic today, staying in control of your life, all of your life, because that's really our job at Care is There. Our job is to make sure our clients have the life that they want to have. So we stand with them in whatever situation they're in to make sure things are going the way that they want them to go. So this is really our bailiwick. So that's what we'll be talking about today, and it's exciting to have Holly here as an attorney because she'll be able to talk about some of the legal aspects of this. So let's get started. Okay, what is an advocate? I'm going to be talking about using an advocate to support your choices. What's an advocate? We're thinking about it in two different kind of sections. One is someone to stand with you to make sure that your wishes are carried out. Another way to think about it, or another kind of aspect of it, a different aspect of it, can be someone to stand in your place. So having someone stand in your place requires legal means, and Holly's going to talk more about that. What I'm going to concentrate on in this part is how to have an advocate that is standing with you. So when is it helpful to use an advocate? When your loved ones live elsewhere. This is often when people hire a company like Care is There to be their advocate. I'm just working with a brand new client now who's 81. She's in wonderful shape, a little trouble with the knee, but you know, who doesn't, right? And she has hired us to be her advocate in medical emergency simply because her children live out of state, and she doesn't want them to have to drop everything and rush in if she would have some sort of medical emergency. And I'm excited about that because she, as far as I'm concerned, is in her prime. That woman doesn't need anything. The reason that she's hiring us is because she wants to give something to her family. She wants her family to be at ease and to know that if something, you know, she would have an emergency, then they wouldn't have to be on the spot right then. So this is a way she's choosing to be in control of her life, not only for her own choices, but so her kids don't have to feel like they're burdened by something that's happening with her. So having loved ones, living out of town is an opportunity to choose an advocate to do what you want without having to bring them into it. Because if you think about it, advocacy, this is something that we do for our families. And any of you who have children, you are an advocate for your kids all the way, through their minor years and probably far beyond that. Our spouses, we're advocates for our spouses. We're there for them when they need us. But there are times when it makes sense to have somebody other than that, or in addition to that, to be your advocate. If you are the caregiver for someone else, there's times when we're so wrapped up with caring for somebody else that we forget about ourselves. And something else we forget about is, what if you have a medical emergency and you're responsible for somebody else? What about the somebody else? What's going to happen to them? So if you have an advocate that you know you can count on to care for you, then they can also be in the loop to care for the person that you're responsible for. So that's something to think about if you're the caregiver for somebody else. Also, maybe the people that you love don't agree with your wishes. Maybe they have something else that they're interested in. Maybe they think you should feel differently. Maybe they're, for example, what I see sometimes with families is adult children live elsewhere. They're worried, and they don't like being worried, so they want you to do something that will keep them from being worried. Moving into assisted living is often one of those things that they want you to do so they don't have to worry. Maybe that's not what you want to do. Then it's nice to have another advocate that can help you have the lifestyle that you want, and also help them not worry. So sometimes having a neutral third party in the loop is a nice way that everybody can have what they want, or at least you can have what you want. If you feel like you're not being heard by a system in which you're operating, I'm going to talk in a minute about the healthcare system. Sometimes you can watch yourself in life, and if you ever feel like you're just kind of being rushed through, or you're just part of a process and they're not really seeing you, they're looking at something, a person, a body, something, and they're not seeing you and they're not hearing you. If you're feeling like that, sometimes it's nice to have somebody else who they will hear. if you're unsure of your options, one of the things that we do at CARES there, and one of the ways that Don knows me is I'm the chair of the Chamber's Aging in Place Business Roundtable. It's a group of meeting we have every month. It's about between 40 and 60 professionals that get together. I chair that, and I go every month because I want to know what everybody's doing. I make it my job to learn about what's happening in the community, so when I have a client that needs that sort of service or could benefit from it, by it, I'll know it exists. So sometimes it's nice to have somebody with you that is familiar with what your options are. So that's some sort of generalities, and now I want to give you some ideas about specific situations where I've seen this work. Doctor's appointments. For our clients, we are almost always with them in the doctor's office. And here's what I've seen. When this was really driven home to me was when a geriatric doctor said at a speaking engagement to the group, "You are in charge of your own health care." Because we're kind of expecting that the doctor is. We think he remembers, we think he knows what's going on with our whole situation. And as medical care has evolved, you know, it's very specialized, right? I had a client that had almost a dozen doctors. And there's no way all those doctors knew what was going on with different parts of her. And she had all kind of meds, and different ones were prescribing different meds. And they're sort of asking, but if you can kind of get that it doesn't all get coordinated very well. So it's nice to have one person who makes sure they understand everything that's going on with your medical care. We do this professionally for our clients. The advocacy I'm going to be talking about here, you don't have to hire a professional to do this. You can have a friend do it, you can have your spouse do it, but it's good for that person to remember that they're in the role of advocate, and it's their job to be organized, to remember what's going on, and to go into the situation standing for you and kind of keeping things on track. So in doctor's appointments, another little statistic, I don't know if you've heard this one, they say doctors now have about 7 minutes with each patient. So watching your doctor's appointments, you know, how it goes, with extra awareness, when they come in, see what happens. Because I see things like this. The doctor comes in, he kind of rushes in, he's probably got the chart, and then he sort of glances at it and he'll say, "So, why are we here today?" And that's just a cue that he doesn't really know. So he's expecting you to know. I've also been in situations where the reason we're there is because he ordered a test, and the test results are now back, and we need to know what's to do next. But knowing what I do, I'll call in advance and ask the office if they have the test results. I've done this before, called, they don't have the test results. I say, anything we can do to help you get those test results? They say, okay, we'll call and get them. We get there, they don't have the test results. But the doctor's making decisions anyway without the test results because he kind of thinks he knows how this is going. So I make it my job with my clients, and your advocate can make it their job for you to remember, we're going to this appointment because there are tests to be run, and make sure that things are proceeding in that way. I've been with clients who start off with a medical condition, they get a test, it goes to the next test, goes to the next treatment, goes to the next treatment, and soon everybody's forgotten why we started this, and has forgotten to circle back and make sure that what we were trying to address is getting addressed. So you're in charge of your own health care. It's nice to have an advocate there with you to help you remember and help you get things on track, because sometimes when it's you, it's easy to just let the doctor or the doctor's office kind of run things. If you've got somebody standing there saying, hey, wait a minute, what did we say about this? Well, what do you think about this med with that med? You know, is this going to work for her? So it's nice to have somebody with you in the doctor's office. So that's an important one. I'd say my second bullet point here is it also helps the doctor's office know somebody's paying attention. When we're there with our clients, everybody kind of perks up a little bit because they know there's somebody there paying close attention and listening. It's also nice to have somebody writing things down when you're there, because sometimes you'll hear part of it and not all of it, what's being said. So, or, you know, especially if they say something you don't want to hear, sometimes everything after that you forget. So it's nice to have somebody who's recording all that so that you'll remember when you leave, and somebody to help you do things like carry out the instructions, it gets prescriptions, pick up what you need, that sort of thing. Another really, really good and important one, is if there's a medical emergency. I told you that this client just engaged us to be her emergency contact in the case of a medical emergency. With our clients where we have this relationship, we're with them in the emergency room, and anybody who's been in the emergency room knows kind of how this goes, that it's kind of frantic. There's a lot of different things going on. Often you are in a room where they can't necessarily see you unless they go in the room or go and look. They're managing other things. It's good to have somebody with you that can make sure that you're getting what you need. I have certainly stood at the door of emergency room, making sure they watched me every time they walk by, because we're waiting for pain meds in here, and I want to be sure they see that here we are, waiting for them, and they don't forget about us. So it's good to have somebody in there doing that for you. Also, when you go to the emergency room, they do things like say, what meds are you on? What's your medical history? Well, if you're by yourself and you're, really having a hard time, you're not going to remember that sort of thing. If you got somebody with you that hands them your meds, hands a med list, says this is their medical history, then the medical staff in the emergency room doesn't have to guess, because otherwise they're kind of guessing. So having an advocate to carry that out for you can make a big difference. Let's see. What about you're in the emergency room and your kids are wondering what's going on? They're frantic. They're trying to figure out what to do. When we're with clients in the emergency room, we're communicating with family. We're using our computer. We're using our phones. We're telling them what's going on so they're aware and they can do what needs to be done. Again, we do this professionally, but if you've got a friend with you in the emergency room that has the contact information of the people that are important to you, then there can be that communication going on. Also, if you get admitted to the hospital, it's nice to have the things that you like with you, because let's say something happens, the rescue squad takes you to the emergency room, you're in whatever you were in, your pajamas, you don't have your reading glasses, you don't have your handbag, you don't have, whatever stuff it is that will make you comfortable. So when we are advocating for clients, we get them in advance to say, if you go to the hospital, what is it that you want there? So for this new client, we know where she keeps her reading glasses at home. We know what music she likes. We know what books she likes to read. We know what snacks she likes to eat. So that if she ends up, getting thrown in the hospital overnight, then we'll be able to go to her house, get what she needs, and she'll have some little comforts that she wouldn't otherwise have. So that's a situation. Also, navigating the healthcare system. If you haven't done it before, there's a process of being admitted. There's a process of planning, what's going to happen next. There's a process of being discharged. There's choosing a rehabilitation facility. Sometimes you don't realize you actually have a choice. There's the process of your care plan in rehab. There's what happens after you come out of rehab. What does Medicare pay for? What does it not pay for? What are my options? What are the things that I can do? So if you have someone that's familiar with that process, then they can help you choose, and also they can help you understand the process so you can work it. For example, I like to go into rehab with a plan on the first or second day, not the 10th day. And if you know that that's the way it goes, that they're going to make a care plan for you, and you're asking, as you're being transferred from the hospital, so when are we going to have the care meeting? It's likely that they're going to do that a little faster than they did if you didn't know how to ask. So navigating the healthcare system is an important, in my mind, one of the most important ways to use an advocate. And some things you may not have thought about. Every day matters. With our clients, we do little things like help them arrange home repairs. If you don't know how to call, you don't feel good about it, it's not the thing that you're used to doing, having somebody make that call is helpful. If you don't know what services are available, you may not realize something is an option for you unless there's somebody that knows about it. Or you may need to be just taken on some errands and that kind of thing. So an advocate can do that for you. Residing in care facilities, we have clients in assisted living, for example, and we take it upon ourselves to make sure that they have the kind of life that they want. And inside a group setting, the facility's kind of having to make things work for themselves, and unless you're sort of speaking up and saying, hey, but you know what, this doesn't really work for me, then they're not going to know. So we work with the staff and with our clients to make sure there's a situation that works for everybody. So those are some examples just to kind of inspire you of how you might want to assign your own advocate to help you out or make sure you have what you want. Who's an advocate? It can be a legal party. That requires, well, I'm not going to say what that requires because we have an attorney here who's going to give you all the specifics on that. But if it's a legal agent, then it needs legal means. It can be a professional, like at CARES there, we're professional advocates for people. Or it could be a friend or loved one, somebody like that, someone who can make a difference for you in that situation. So those are some ideas about who can be an advocate for you. Now, what do they need to be effective? They need to know you, and they need to know what you want clearly. I said in some cases legal appointment is necessary. Holly will talk about that. Important point if you're having a healthcare advocate is the healthcare system needs to know that it's okay for them to talk to your advocate. And the way that is done these days is through a HIPAA authorization. So when you go to your doctor, if you say, I have someone that I want to be sure you can talk to about my medical care, ask them, what paperwork do I need to fill out for you? What HIPAA form do I need to fill out for you? So if they call you, you'll be able to give them that information. And at the doctor's office, they'll have that, but they usually don't think to ask you that unless you ask specifically. And it can be a little bit of a tangle if somebody calls asking about you and they are actually legally prevented from having that conversation with you unless they have that form signed. So that's an important thing. Even, by the way, your kids, even your spouse, that needs to be signed by. So next time you're at the doctor, make sure you get it and you put all the people on there that you want the doctor to be able to talk to. Physical proximity makes your advocate more effective. Having somebody there with you makes a difference. Even though your kids, are beloved to you and you beloved to them, if they live elsewhere and they can't be there with you, it's harder for them to be an effective advocate. I have a backup healthcare power of attorney that is not a family member because my whole family lives out of state. So I have a friend, a personal friend, who is my backup healthcare advocate because I want somebody here to be able to make decisions if nobody else can. And when you're looking for an advocate, these are the people that are good at it. Competent, confident, organized people. So this is somebody who is not afraid to stand up and say what needs to be said. Best if they're knowledgeable about the environment they're working in so that they can be effective. For example, we know that in rehab there's a care plan, so we know to ask, where is it? We know that you're probably going to get more effective care if everybody's aware of that plan. So it's nice to have somebody who's familiar with the system. Also, this is important to me, and I think it should be important to you. Somebody who is skilled in negotiating outcomes. So I think it doesn't work, especially if you're working in a setting like a hospital or a care facility, to sort of go in and read everybody the riot act, because whoever you're advocating for is now stuck with that after you leave. So you could create, resentment or frustration because there's always somebody on the other side of that. The hospital staff, the care staff, they're trying to make things work for themselves too. So it's best to have somebody who can recognize what agendas everybody has, what everybody needs, what your kids need, what you need, what the care facility needs, so that they can negotiate an outcome that works for everybody. So it's something to keep in mind if you're advocating for somebody or if somebody's advocating you, is to negotiate an outcome that works for everybody. What to do next if you want to choose advocate for yourself. Decide who you want it to be. See if you can choose somebody who's knowledgeable, trustworthy, experienced, and competent. If you can get somebody like that, take them. Will they be available when you need them? It's not practical if they're not. And it's nice to have a backup if your other advocate isn't available. Holly's going to talk about the legal means that you would need to take to create legal advocacy. I just said to get your HIPAA form signed so that your advocate can get medical information from your healthcare providers. Gather medical information and share it with your advocate. The list that I have here, this is what we do when we're intaking our clients and getting them ready for us to be their advocate. We get a med list, we get a medical history so that we have all of their information when we're in the doctor's office with them, when we're in the hospital with them, that we can provide that healthcare staff with the right information. So get that information together and make sure your advocate has it available. Set up a communication network. For our clients, we have a website that we use that whenever we see a client or something's happening, we go out there and make a post and emails to all the family members so they know what's going on. You could do something like that. You could just have a telephone list. We have certainly been with clients. We had a client that took a healthcare turn for the worse, and it ended up being her last few days. And her family was strong people, but this was a very difficult time for them. One of the things we said is, would you like us to call some of her friends so they can be here with her? And they said, sure, but they were kind of at wit's end. We already had a list of her friends and their contact information. We knew many of them had talked to them, so we were able to call them so they could come and spend some time with her before they lost her. So having a communication network where people can be in communication with each other, where your advocate can be talking to the people that you love, is important to set up in advance. And keep information up to date. Once you've taken those initial steps, it's good to stay up to date. We do that by going to the doctor with our clients, so we make sure we're in the loop with everything that they're doing. And if you have an advocate that's with you in the doctor's office, they can do the same. This is my contact information, but now I'm going to turn it over to Holly because she's going to talk to us about some of the legal measures you can take to make sure you stay in control of your life. Yes? Afterwards. Let's let Holly, especially since I might have gone a little long, let's let Holly talk to you about this part, and then we can take the questions.
Welcome. Good to see all of you. Okay, so legal means of taking control of your life, all of your life, and actually way past your life. Because many of you may already know that when you do a trust document, you're controlling what you put in there for, it's actually the legal requirement is that it can't be longer than 21 years beyond a life in being. But that's still a couple of generations. So, the rule against perpetuities, it's technical, but it's a law that keeps property from being stuck in one place. The English law, as well as, in England, as well as when we came here and established our law based on the English law, is concerned with property not getting stuck in one family forever, unfortunately, because we, of course, love that. But okay, so who here does not have a medical directive? Only one. I'm sorry to make you stand out. Okay, medical directives I have copies here in my folder, and I just want to say that it's so important to have a medical directive, basically not just for you, not just for the doctors, but for anyone who loves you, because that is where you communicate what you want. If you're in an end-of-life situation, a situation where you cannot communicate, people can be assured that they are doing what you want done. I'm sure you all know, especially those of you that have done them, that right now, by now, we're in an environment where once an EMT shows up, or you have a situation where you go to the hospital, people need to know what you want done. You can wind up in a persistent vegetative state for a long time. You just never know, or and so you just want to say whether you want to stay in that state and what you want done when you're in that state. You have complete authority to decide, and there are a lot of other nuances. Is this still okay? A lot of other nuances related to medical directives that I like to cover with people, but it's more important that you just get a form and fill it out. So, and bring copies to people that in your lives that may not have them. Feel free to, because I also have a website that you can go to. There are 4 different medical directives on there to review, and it is helpful to see a lawyer, but it didn't make it into your outlines, but it's www.advancedirective.org. Why does that keep going out? Okay. Advancedirective.org. So yes, write that down, take a look, and feel free to call any lawyer about it. I wouldn't call the health professionals because they get bogged down in it too. So, Okay, so healthcare decision, medical directives really have to do, of course, with your physical state and what happens if you are unable to communicate it. In order to handle your finances, if you have an accident or become unable to communicate in some way, you need a power of attorney. You need to have executed a power of attorney, and many people have done that and have designated their spouse, but that's sort of sometimes just repetitive, because if spouses jointly own all their assets, they really have that authority anyway. The really important thing to do with a power of attorney, so that if something happens and you and your spouse, or if you're widowed or unmarried, is to execute. Why does this keep doing this? I'm not good with mics. Is to execute either a power of attorney naming the spouse and then someone else as an alternate in case something happens to both of you, or execute a springing power of attorney, which only takes effect upon your incapacity. Durable power of attorney, that term relates to the fact that whoever you identify to take care of your financial matters can do so after you become incapacitated. So a springing power of attorney is automatically durable, and any power of attorney you execute should be durable, because that's what you want it for. Unless you want somebody to have power to, while you're away, to sign a document, then we make a limited one. But anyway, there are lots of choices, but it's really important to name someone to take care of your finances if you are unable to function for any reason, even for a short period of time. And, it's helpful to see a lawyer about your options. Okay. So as you consider the environment you want to live in during your last days here on Earth, you will need to plan for the possibility that you may need long-term nursing care. The sources of funds for long-term nursing care are your private funds, long-term care insurance, veterans benefits if they apply, and Medicaid if they apply. Veterans aid and attendance benefits and Medicaid benefits are only available for people who do not have funds to pay for nursing care. But despite the stigma attached to Medicaid, the benefits are available for in-home care, and there are spaces available in most nursing homes for people receiving Medicaid benefits. So your quality of life when you're eligible to receive the benefits can still be very good. If you plan correctly and things work well together, you can pass more of your estate down to your loved ones and remain comfortable in a long-term care facility while receiving benefits. The Veterans Administration permits a veteran or his or her spouse to give away their assets in order to deplete them and get benefits, but Medicaid does not. You cannot have depleted your assets within 5 years of needing the benefits. So if you wish to pass a legacy of assets to your loved ones, you'll need to do so at least 5 years before applying for Medicaid. Again, we're not in control of that, which is why I said all things need to work together sometimes to be able to do that. But it's still easier to plan it and have a sense of what you may or may not do. It's better than to not look at it at all. Elder law attorneys are lawyers that are familiar with the various scenarios and can help you sort out the legal means to distribute your assets so that you can fulfill your goals regarding your living arrangements and your legacy, which are competing in a lot of situations. Special needs trusts are a means of providing for supplemental needs for disabled individuals that receive Medicaid that is a blessed method by the government, the federal government. The law governing them is complicated, special needs trusts, so you need to see a lawyer if you want to provide for a disabled loved one long term. Okay, probate. So what are your all thoughts about what probate involves and whether it's a pain? Anybody have anything they want to share? It can be expensive. It is public, and yes, that is something a lot of people want to avoid. Tell me about the expensive answer. Have you seen a situation where it has been?
Well, I just hear about it all the time.
Okay, go ahead.
I used to live in New York, where the going rate, not by law, but the going rate was 20% of the assets of the estate.
For the
I
for the professionals that are helping. Not surprising in New York. I'm from New York, but in order for a lawyer to live, they're going to charge twice as much or 3 times as much. But that's true. Professionals can be expensive. I actually do. I love helping people through the probate process because it can be confusing, and I do keep my rates reasonable. However, what we do as elder law attorneys is we really try to give you the whole scenario so that you can avoid probate as much as possible so your loved ones don't have to work through that. But I will tell you that the probate fees in Virginia are only $1 per $1,000 of value, and real estate transfers immediately upon death. So very little is actually charged except if people have lots and lots of money. However, it's emotionally costly and difficult for loved ones to have to deal with all of that. And, though I like to help people through the probate process, I more so enjoy helping them to resolve everything in advance so they know that their loved ones don't have to deal with it. So different ways to do that. Of course, giving away your assets while you're alive prevents them having to be transferred after you pass away. But a lot of times we want to enjoy those assets till the end of life. And, financial assets, obviously, you don't know how many you'll need, so you're not going to give them all away. Small estates, estates with all personal assets of $15,000 or less actually do not need to go through probate at all. So small estates, there is, a way through that. But again, seeing a lawyer is helpful. Legal aid, I don't think helps with probate itself, but lawyers that are serving the community of people with small estates are not charging an arm and a leg to do that because it would, defeat the purpose. Jointly owned assets, anything that you own jointly, property, real estate, as well as bank accounts, even financial accounts, investment accounts, passes immediately to the survivor without going through probate. So it's something to consider who you might want to add to your account. The negative of it is that it means that they own it with you in equal shares while you're alive, and sometimes people don't want to do that. Payable on death, transfer on death also provides a means to transfer your assets without it going through probate, and they don't get to own it with you while you're alive. So it's a great option. And revocable living trust. Anything that you place in a revocable living trust does not go through probate. Talk about that a little bit in a minute, a little bit more in a minute. Okay, also, writing a will does not mean that you are then going to have assets passing through probate. Writing a will is a very valuable thing for your loved ones, even if you have, because it tells them what you want done if you've never had that conversation with them while you're alive. And it actually blesses your loved ones. Now, there are plenty of times that, because they know you've been thinking about them. It actually, I know a lot of people do it to exclude certain people they don't want to get their estate, and that's a very very acceptable reason to do a will as well. Again, it has to do with controlling your stuff after you pass away and letting people know what you want them to have, giving them a remembrance of you, as well as letting people know that, in your opinion, they hurt you and, shouldn't be using your, receiving your assets. You may not need a will to pass down your legacy, but the probate process is determined by state law, so you do want to talk to a lawyer in your state of residence to determine whether a will is helpful in your situation. And again, for people under a certain income level, legal aid can help in that situation. Okay, estate tax considerations are the opposite end of the low income, but the exemption from estate taxes is movable. This year and last year, it was $5 million. However, so very few of us, unfortunately, would have a problem. But on January 1st, 2013, it goes back down to $1 million. Now, spouses, under the current law, spouses can elect their predeceased spouse's election so that you're combining them, so you have double the exemption. But in 2013, it'll go back to you can only elect your own. So when you have two spouses and you have assets of over $1 million, which includes life insurance, face value of life insurance, and equity in a home, that's what's counted up to determine your estate. Different than probate, different things are included. Then you really do want to see a lawyer about making sure that you preserve the exemption for the first spouse. Because if it's not included in the estate plan, you wind up getting only $1 million exemption rather than two. And you wind up, the maximum rate of estate taxes is going up higher than it ever did in 2013, and that will be 55% of the assets. Now, it's not what everyone will be charged, it is the maximum, but it starts at, I think, 40. It's a hit that if there is a legal provision to avoid it, you want to find out about it and make sure you do it. Okay, so I've talked about, I didn't mention it, but one of the other avenues available to estate planning to avoid estate tax is to develop an irrevocable living trust and put assets in it. So often revocable living trusts are sufficient because it takes things out of probate, but if you need your estate taxes addressed, you would need an irrevocable living trust to do it that way. So I've mentioned special needs trusts, revocable living trusts, and irrevocable living trusts. All of those trusts are living trusts, meaning they're set up in your lifetime, and any living trust is only worth the assets that are in it. This is a pet peeve of many estate planning lawyers. Those of us that really want to make a difference in the lives of our clients, many lawyers write up a trust document and never work with their clients to move assets into it. That is a useless document. Assets need to be transferred into a trust for the trust to have control over what happens to them. You do generally need a lawyer to help you do that. Obviously it's a little bit complicated, but I just want to say if you have developed a living trust or, in any capacity, make sure you talk to a lawyer about what assets are in there. It has wound up being a disaster in more situations than I want to tell you. So I want to say again, loss of capacity is a really depressing subject that I don't really want to end on, but I want to say that the legal means to address loss of capacity, if you have not planned in advance with powers of attorney, is never a pleasant process. It's not always contested, but often it is. Different family members feel differently about what to do for the one that is becoming unable to handle things. And it's emotionally costly and can be financially costly, obviously, with legal means. So very important to execute both a healthcare directive and address the issue of financial power of attorney, which can prevent the need for all litigation later.